How does a kingdom actually die? It's not always with a huge bang from a foreign invasion. Sometimes it's more like a sickness from within. And today, we're going to explore the absolutely dramatic collapse of a nation that literally tore itself apart. It's a pretty wild question when you think about it. How does that happen? Well, this is the story of how a proud, independent kingdom managed to engineer its own downfall, and it all came down to this toxic mix of sibling rivalry, pure personal ambition, and one fatal appeal to a foreign power. So, to really understand how this kingdom could fall so tragically, we first have to appreciate just how amazing its rise was. This was a legacy forged in an incredible, century-long struggle for freedom. And we are talking about a full 100 years of freedom. It all started back in 1670 BCE when a priest named Matthias kicked off the Maccabean revolt. His descendants, one after another, fought and bled for an independent Judea. They drove out massive foreign empires to forge their own sovereign state. This was a legacy built on unity, on sacrifice, and just a fierce, fierce will to be free. But, and this is where the story takes a turn, that unity, the very thing that won them their freedom, it just dissolved, tragically. In less than a generation, the kingdom that stood defiant against the world would turn its sword against itself. At the heart of it all were two brothers, and they were a perfect storm of personalities. After their mother, Queen Alexandra, died, the kingdom was just torn in two. You had Hyrcanus, the elder son. He was the rightful heir, but he was passive, not really ambitious. And then there was his younger brother, Aristobulus, who was the exact opposite. Charismatic, aggressive, and just hungry for power. The stage was absolutely set for a civil war. And right into this power vacuum steps this really cunning advisor, a guy named Antipater. He sees his chance. He goes to the passive older brother, Hyrcanus, and starts whispering in his ear, convincing him he's being wronged, and pushes him to fight back by making a very, very dangerous alliance with the king of Arabia. And just like that, a family dispute completely explodes into a national crisis. We're talking about a foreign army of 50,000 soldiers now on Judean soil, laying siege to the capital, Jerusalem. The brothers' personal quest for power had invited a foreign invasion and paralyzed the entire nation.
So, they're trapped in a stalemate of their own making. And what do? Unbelievably, both brothers make the exact same catastrophic decision. They appeal to an outside power to sell their score, and not just any power, but the rising superpower of the Mediterranean, Rome.
So the first Roman to show up on the scene is this general, Scaurus. And you can just imagine his surprise. He gets to the region and finds these two rival princes practically begging for the mighty Roman Republic to step in and solve their private war for them.
Now, this moment, it reveals everything about Rome's priorities. Scaurus wasn't interested in justice or who had the rightful claim. As the historian Josephus puts it so well, his decision really came down to cold, hard cash. Aristobulus offered the bigger bribe, 300 talents, and with that, he bought himself a Roman ally.
But see, this only escalated the problem. Aristobulus wanted temporary victory, sure, but Hyrcanus and his advisor Antipater, they just went over the general's head. They took their case directly to the most powerful man in the Republic, the legendary Pompey the Great. They had basically just invited a shark into their swimming pool.
This was the tragic mistake. The brothers thought they were hiring an arbitrator, a judge who would just pick a side. They completely failed to realize they had summoned a conqueror. Rome didn't see a dispute to solve. It saw a fractured kingdom that was ripe for the taking.
Well, Pompey was not a man known for his patience. He quickly got tired of all the brothers squabbling. Annoyed by Aristobulus' defiance, he just dropped the whole pretense of arbitration and did what the Romans did best. He marched his legions on Jerusalem. And the result was a total catastrophe. The city turned on itself. Hyrcanus' supporters actually opened the gates to the invaders. The war ended in a brutal 3-month siege of the Temple Mount and an absolute massacre. And then, in the ultimate act of profane conquest, Pompey himself strode into the Holy of Holies, the most sacred place in Judaism, which even their own kings were forbidden to enter. In that single moment, the independence their grandfathers had died for was just extinguished.
So, a new order rose from the ashes. And here's the crazy part. In the end, neither brother truly won. Pompey stripped them both of any real power. So who was the real winner? That cunning advisor, Antipater, the one who'd been whispering in Hyrcanus' ear all along. Rome recognized his ambition and made him the guy in charge. Just a few decades later, his son, Herod, would be installed by Rome as king, ending the Hasmonean dynasty for good.
So it begs the question, right? When a house is divided against itself, who truly inherits the kingdom? In this case, it was the outsider who they invited in to settle their dispute. And this story, it's a timeless warning. The greatest threats to a nation's freedom often come not from foreign armies at the gates, but from the division within the walls.